Jeff says, just landed a multi-location attorney, offices in 4 different cities, separated geographically by 1,500 miles or so. Okay. Would it be, excuse me, guys. All right. Would it be better to structure their new site using subdomains for each city, or would it be better to have a domain city / city name type of structure? What would you found work better in the past? As always, any input is greatly appreciated. Jeff, I always recommend going with subdomains. So just use your root domain as like, and what I've been doing recently, personally, what I like to do is on the root domain now, it depends. If I'm going to be doing a syndication network, then, and I'm going to be trying to syndicate from the root domain for all locations, which is perfectly fine to do. And I recommend doing that because you don't need 4 syndication networks. Chances are you don't need 4 syndication networks. You said you've got 4 locations, right? A lot of people want to right off the bat create a separate syndication network for each location. It's not necessary. A lot of the times it's unnecessary to do that. You can get away with one branded syndication network that covers all 4 locations, and you basically do all your blogging from the root domain, which in which case you would want WordPress installed because you're going to use the blog function for your content distribution engine, right? That's how you're going to be publishing content to your network. So in that case, you'd want to put WordPress on that as kind of just a brand site. In other words, it's not going to be location specific. Now, of course, you can put a locations page on the site, and then you can link out to each one of the subdomains from that locations page, but you would use the blog. And then here's the other thing. You would also create categories for each one of those subdomain locations. So let's say you've got Dallas and Atlanta and Miami. Okay, let's just say those are 3. Then you would create Dallas category, you'd have a Dallas subdomain, and maybe you'd even say Dallas TX dot whatever your domain is. You could have a Miami one and an Atlanta category. And the idea is every single time you go to publish a post from the root domain to your single tier 1 ring branded network, then you would just make sure that the post that you're using to like promote the Dallas site, for example, has an internal link up to the Dallas category page. And also links out to the category on the root domain, but also a contextual link that links out to the subdomain. And so that way you can build links to each one of your subdomain sites through just one blog. Which what happens is after you've started publishing content consistently, you start boosting the branded network, link building. You're starting to get some traction. Remember, the more content you publish, the more themed it will become, the higher the authority will build. And so you'll start seeing movement from your subdomain sites if you do it this way. What happens is after a period of time, let's say, and it depends on your frequency of publishing. So how often are you publishing, that kind of thing. But if once you've got some good volume there, you should be able to determine which particular subdomain sites or locations may need the extra boost, in which case you could, at that time, create a location-specific network, which would be just the brand name plus the location modifier. Right? So you can do that, and then you can actually start publishing content from that specific subdomain to that location specific network. But don't go through all that, and don't go through all that trouble until you've created one branded syndication network and started pushing your content out to that, because there's a good chance that you're going to start gaining a lot of traction with just that alone, and there's no reason to go through all the extra hassle. Okay? But I absolutely recommend using subdomains because it reduces exposure or risk. Remember, if your domain gets penalized and you've got all of your location stuff as pages or silos on the site, then you're going to lose all of those sites. All those locations are going to go down if your domain gets penalized. But if you have them on subdomains and any one of the subdomains gets slapped, then it's not going to affect the other subdomains. Does that make sense? And so that's part of the reason why if you're going to be using subdomains, you don't want to be doing anything spammy to the root. And syndicating content from the root to your branded network is all you really need to do. And then you can always boost your tier 1 ring, and you can do like third-party inbound linking to your individual subdomains. But I wouldn't do any kind of inbound linking to your root domain, because if you got that slapped, it would affect all your subdomains too. Does that make sense? So you just want to be real careful anytime you're doing thing on a root domain, guys, because once the domain gets slapped, then it's tanked, and everything attached to it is. All right.